Welcome to the September 18th webinar of the EPWUSA Virtual Chapter. I am Kathy Tobin. I am the Virtual Chapter President, and I'm going to be the MC and host for tonight's webinar, Virtual Tools Exploring New and Emerging Technologies. We come together as part of one of the oldest and most influential organizations, BPW International, which unites women around the world. Although our members speak different languages and live in different countries, we share the same determination of purpose. Tonight, our common purpose is an update about using technology. Our agenda for this evening is I'm going to introduce our speaker, Dr. Christina Royal, and there will be question and answers. I'm going to ask you that you can put questions in the chat, and then Christina will see your questions and she'll take them, and she'll also open up for questions at various points in time. And then when she's through with her presentation, I'll just come back and do some closing remarks. So I'd like to introduce Christina Royal to you. I've known Christina since, oh boy, it's been 7 years, 8 years, I'm not even sure. It's been a while, Tina.
Yeah.
Currently she is the Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs in Inver Hills Community College, which is in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is where she is right now. She's been involved in education and training for over 15 years, both in the academic setting for community college and a private four-year institution, as well as corporate environments. She also serves as a higher education consultant and is a keynote speaker. Her extensive experience as an administrator, a faculty member, a student, an instructional designer of both online and blended instructions allow us to bring significant expertise and value to discussions on emerging technology. She was actually the recipient of the 2012 United States Distant Learning Award for Outstanding Leadership in the Field of Distance Learning. So I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Christina Royal.
Great. Well, thank you, Kathy. I am excited to be able to connect with you guys again. I think it was about this time last year that I did a presentation on virtual tools, and Kathy asked me if I would come back and do sort of a part 2 type of version. So I really want to make this session about things that are of interest to those attending today. I picked a couple of topics that I thought might be of interest, have universal value, and maybe things that you want to learn a little bit more about. However, I would like to kind of get a sense of, and maybe you could type this in, or if you have audio, you could certainly speak it, but I want to get a sense of why you're here today, what you are looking to get out of this session. So if you can either type that in the chat, or if you have audio and want to speak your answer, that's also great.
This is Barb from Pennsylvania. Christina, I'm really very interested in learning more about the Twitter and the Dropbox, and that's the main reason why I'm here.
Great. Okay, I see Twitter, Dropbox, WordPress. Okay. So it definitely sounds like some of these topics that I've picked for today seem to work well. I am very comfortable with you stopping and asking questions along the way, or if I am talking about something and you would like to know a different aspect about it that I'm not covering, feel free to either type something in the chat box or just interrupt me. I'm pretty flexible, and I don't get thrown off too easily if people want to interrupt with different questions. So we'll go ahead and get started, but I just want to encourage you to be active participants so that this session, we can make sure that you get the most out of what you came here looking for. So a couple of the things that I wanted to cover today really include Pinterest, since there's a lot of attention on that particular social application, and then some social networking, social media tools like Twitter, and I wanted to overlap some productivity tools that make sense for business and industry, whether you're a small business owner and looking for resources to be able to expand your business or leverage your business, or you're an individual who does consulting and also looking to access the types of free and available tools, or you're just an individual or working professional that has a personal interest in learning about some of these things that we hear more frequently about. I did want to make a point at the end just to start to introduce a newer topic about virtual assistants and kind of start a conversation going on that. But we'll get started with some more common ones. So,
Christina, if I could interrupt you, we've got a gray space on the screen. It's not full screen.
It's not
showing full screen. It's showing your desktop, but it's showing a gray space on your screen. So we're just showing. We're not seeing a full-blown PowerPoint. There you go. But I don't know why there's a gray overlay on your screen for some reason.
Huh, something that you didn't see earlier?
Not when mine was displaying, I don't think. I mean, I'd have to ask someone else, but as soon as we switch screens, all of a sudden there's just an gray overlay. Don't know what that's about.
You still have it, Kathy. I do. I still have it.
You still have a gray overlay?
Yeah.
Let me switch to, so this is the site I wanted to go to. Do you see it now?
Yes.
All right, then how about let me try something else. So how about I give this back to you, Kathy, and then you can just turn it back and we'll see if that helps.
Okay, let me just...
Now we don't have it.
Okay. So I have the agenda. Can you see it okay from my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I have no idea why there was an overlay there.
Well, do you, can you give it back to me now? And we'll see if it still exists.
Okay. Yep.
Is that better?
Still there.
Because I wanted to, although I think I could do it in the context of the start. Well, let's see. So I'm wondering if it has to do with the resolution. Is it look really small, or you just?
It's like a whole column. It's almost. It's 3/4. It's like 3/4 of a column. You know, it's just like it looks like a number 1, and it's large. I have no idea where that's coming from, but
it wasn't there earlier.
Well, it's not when I display this screen, but when you are displaying, there's just something really odd. It also is displaying. It's not full screen. I mean, you're going on Pinterest website? Is that the real website?
It is. I'm logged in though, but it's the real website.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's
so maybe would I have the ability to operate within the Smart Meeting browser if I turned it back to you?
As far as putting in the URL, you mean?
And navigating within there.
Maybe. I'd have to put the Pinterest URL up.
Or let me just try. If I change, let's just try this. Does that change?
It went away. Well, it's okay. It's still to the right, and for a second there, it brought up another one. So it's very odd.
Let me try taking something else off. I was just trying to see if I show fewer screens. Does that make any difference?
No.
So can you see the majority of it?
Yes.
Or
Yeah. I don't think it's total. It would just, it's just off to the right now, so we can see other pieces enough to know what's going on.
So how much of the Pinterest page can you see?
3/4, more than 3/4.
Okay. So what's the farthest thing to the right that you see? Give me.
Where it says Olympic fireplace, some of that is not
Okay.
visible. Yeah.
All right. That gives me a reference point, though. Okay. Well, let's talk about, and if you guys can mute if you're not talking to reduce some of the feedback, that would be great. Yes, that's perfect. So I wanted to talk about Pinterest because there is a lot of attention being given to this website, and as most of the social networking tools start off, they tend to be the website that a lot of the younger folks tend to start using for casual purposes, and they really get that reputation, but eventually educators and other people start to look at how they can use these tools for different purposes. So one of the interesting things about Pinterest is both its simplicity and the power that it has. This site was created because the concept of most people being visual learners is something that we hear a lot about, and you might even feel and experience yourself. If someone's trying to explain something, you might say, draw me a picture so I can help understand this concept that you're talking about. And so we tend to be visual consumers of information. And the way that Pinterest works is a little bit like an old-fashioned bulletin board or pin-up board, in which you actually pin up some type of graphic. So it could be a photo you took, or a PowerPoint slide, or some other type of thing that would be visually represented. As you can see on the screen, there's a lot of people just coming up with creative ways to put quotes on a slide. So this is what it's used for. But one of the things that I like about it is it helps foster some creativity in ideas and prompting you for different things that you might be of interest, or maybe you need a starting point of ideas. So starting an account is very easy. I'm not going to walk through that piece, but literally it's just going to ask you to put your name and your email address in, and then you'll have an account. And then essentially when you go to Pinterest homepage, which is where I'm at now, you just get a bunch of random boards, and you have a search bar in the upper left-hand corner, and you can type something. So just to get us started, I thought I would say business cards. So maybe I'm looking to redesign my business card, or maybe I'm looking to get business cards for the first time, and I just want to get some ideas. So I type business cards in, and let's see what comes up. So let me close that. So what you see here are a bunch of things that have been meta tagged as business cards. And a business card tag, a meta tag, is the way that someone chooses to label something when they post it. So when you put something, when you upload your own pictures into Pinterest, then you can tag them with certain keywords to make it easy for people to search and find that content. So, so here's a couple of examples, and you sometimes see things that are seemingly irrelevant, like we have a sofa bed that comes up in the search, but then you also have this thing that says how to design the best business card. So let me click on that and pull that up. So then it kind of walks you through, here's the concept, the content, the font, color, and just gives you some things to think about. If I really liked this particular, what they're calling pin, then I can pin it to my wall. And so all I do is click on the pin it button, and it's always going to be a little red button. And then in this case, because I just created this dummy account for training purposes, I'm creating my first board, and I can put a description of this. So maybe I'm going to put business cards, because then what I can do is I can start to collect several pins that I find on Pinterest and put them all on my board. And because you want to think organizationally, it's almost like filing things in drawers. So what are we calling this drawer? We're going to call it business cards, and every idea I have, I'm going to be able to throw into that bin. So, oops, I hit close. And so I can pin this. Oops. Business cards. And so now I've officially put my first pin in, and that serves there as a reference. Now, the other thing is I can then just go back and I can look at other types of things that I might want to add. So let me just go back to my business card search. And so I can scroll down and I can say, wow, you know, I really like this particular design because it's really cool. It's not only colorful, but it also is kind of a card within a card thing. I like that. So I can pin that. And this time I can put it in my business card folder and pin it. So now I've got more than one in there. And then you can keep going. And or you can visit the site that pins that particular thing up. So a lot of people use this as a marketing tool to be able, especially if they have a product that has visual appeal to it. Some people, like photographers, might be displaying their photos for sale. There's a lot of different purposes, but from a business perspective, this could be a really great tool, both in the creative element of continuing your business and coming up with new ideas, but then also the concept of being able to pin things that other people might be searching for you related to the same ideas. And so you might say, but I don't have a product. Maybe you're a consultant or a professional. And so you're like, well, I don't have anything to pin. How is that going to help me promote my business? Well, I could go ahead and create, I'm just using this as an example, I could create an infographic, and then I can put my consulting business name on the bottom. So as it gets spread and tagged through social media, then it's giving me some free marketing and promotion of my business with that type of thing. Some people could even take something as simple as quotes that are related to your business. And again, people like the idea of going viral with stuff. Barb was asking if there's a charge for this program, and this is free. So there's no charge, and it really falls into the same category and philosophy of a lot of social media sites, which is just the idea and power of being able to use the media to get some type of exposure in cyberspace. And so some people use it casually and some people use it professionally. There's always, for just about every social media site, there are upcharges if you want memberships to these, but they all have free versions. They'll have a limitation on perhaps how many pins you can have a month, but you still have a certain amount that you can use for free. Any questions about this tool? All right, I'm going to transition then to the next one. Oh, do we have a question?
I was going to ask a question. So
Sure.
could you, I've heard somebody say that they could create something and then people could click on it and then go to a website or buy something. I mean, can you drive it to another site with this?
Yes, you can. So if I'm clicking on this one, for example, can you see these business cards that I just pulled up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so at the top, you have the option of pinning it. And you can see how many people have pinned it. You have the option of liking it and the number of people have liked it, or you have the option of visiting the site. And then, of course, to the right, you always have the option of sharing it. So that's when you see people reposting things on Facebook, for example, or sending it via email. Maybe I was looking at these and I have a friend who says I was, redesigning my business card, and maybe I wanted to send that to her. So I could email her that. But you can visit, if I click on Visit Site, that's going to take me directly to this person's website.
Oh.
And so what a lot of people do, in addition to linking directly to their website, is they like to put on the pictures themselves, they'll sometimes make a note. They'll put their name or they'll put the business name, so that, because they know that people get a little sloppy with attributing things to people. So if they just put it right there on the picture, then they'll, that'll go viral along with their business name. And the other thing I'll mention is, if you find that you like a lot of their stuff, sometimes you just like one random thing that someone posts, but you don't really want to follow them. But then there's sometimes that you're like, oh my gosh, I really like this person's style, or I like this person's thinking, the articles or whatever. So you have the option to follow their entire board. So anytime they post something new, then you would get, that would appear in your inventory. So in this case, if I really liked this person's work, I could click Follow Board, and so now this company creations, I'll get, anytime they add a new pin to it, then I'll be able to see that. Any other questions about this? Well, I will just, before I transition to the next one, I'll say this is a very, very powerful medium, because people are visual and people like things for free. So, the idea of just having samples of things to work with, it really is something. Pinterest has just grown, tenfold since they started, and this has become a real popular site. So, okay, let's transition to Twitter. And in this case, I didn't bother to kind of create another account. I just went with my Twitter account. I won't say that I'm a huge Twitter person who uses Twitter a lot, but I will say that I do it in spurts. For example, when I did my keynote presentation earlier this year, people were actually posting and tagging me on Twitter while I was speaking. And they were having a whole another set of conversations outside of being physically present at my presentation. And this was all happening live. And so after my presentation was done, I was able to go right on and be able to look at what everybody said and what they were talking about. Because I had an account, they were able to just tweet or hashtag me so that I would be able to see this. So this is so Twitter is another form of social networking, but the way that it's gotten its claim to fame is that you're limited in the number of characters that you can tweet. And so you only have 140 characters, and that includes spaces. So 140 characters, again, that's not words, that's characters, is not very much. And that's what people love about this medium. Now, you could certainly make a case and argue the types of social implications this has for our society. But putting the big philosophical discussion aside, what people really like is that they get tidbits of information fast. They can scan through a lot of information in a short period of time and be able to keep up with a great diversity of connections about things. So, you see here I've got everything from the New York Times to Wired Magazine and Arianna Huffington. And so you see the Huffington Post there, Barack Obama, Windows. I mean, you've got all of these things. It's just all over the place. And I got the Twitter Small Business, so that focuses on how to leverage Twitter, for small business purposes. So there's a lot of cool things that you have that you can just really, really go through a lot of content in a short period of time. And then most people will put a link to the full article. So I might post something and then put a URL. So if I just go to one of my tweets, for example, so September 14th, I posted about the Google 2014 Science Fair and our future leaders and innovators. This is very cool, by the way. There's one woman, and I use the term woman loosely because these people are like 14 years old and 10 years old, but there's one woman who has proposed a way to address cyberbullying that I just thought was really inspirational. So anyway, you can see I just wrote something brief and then put a link there. So that's cool. And then you'd be able to see where people retweet things. So this Gates Foundation posting, I went ahead and retweeted this, so it shows that I retweeted it and 59 other people retweeted it. And so that's another way that you can see how quickly things spread, and Maya Angelou quote and picture. So it pretty much is just limited to a little bit of information and then a link to something. And I do want to just go on a quick tangent for a second, because you might be wondering how people get these tiny URLs. We're used to seeing www.blah-blah-blah.com/ and then it has a long thing. And there's not enough characters to be able to do that in this environment. So what people do is they use what's called a short URL. And I'll just show you a really easy one. I'm going to just type in Google short URL, and I'll bring up the Google one probably. So there's a Google URL shortener. And when you go to this site, all you do is paste that long URL into the box. And I don't have a long one in this case, but imagine it was a long article or something. And then you click shorten URL. And all of a sudden, you'll see in the middle of the screen, it gives me a short URL. And so that's what I post then. I don't post the long thing anymore. I just post the short one. And so people have something really easy to be able to reference. So in case you were wondering about that. Let me just stop for a second and look at some of these questions. See, I do have a Twitter account, but I'm not tweeting, just following different organizations. A lot of people do that they just have the account and they're more of what we consider lurkers. And then other people might actively tweet about things. And then Barb was saying that, you've got a way of keeping tracks of how many hits you have. Yep, it's the same way, whether you're talking about website traffic or social media traffic, the ability to kind of see what's happening is pretty powerful with Twitter. They have very good analytics on here. So here is an example of the I was doing a presentation to a bunch of STEM students that are in high school, and they were visiting my college. and one of them said, "Can we get a picture with you to tweet it?" So I said, "Sure." So their teacher took the picture here, and then she posted it and sent it to me. And then, you know, she included in this case a hashtag, which is the pound sign or the number sign, and then in this case college access. And that is just a way for people to identify themes of content. And so, for example, if you're doing a presentation and you want to encourage people to tweet about it, you could say, you know, you can find me on Twitter. Here's my Twitter handle. And you can also say, you know, hashtag and then whatever the topic is about. And so people will be able to trend what everybody posts about that topic if they all use the same hashtag at that time. So then it makes it really easy to find what everybody's saying. So that's a little bit of how Twitter's used in this capacity. Someone's asking, how do you send a message to a person via Twitter? So the best way to send a message to someone, let me just go back to my home. So let me go to people I'm following. And all right, so I've got Jimmy Fallon and the Dalai Lama together, so you can see how diverse that is. But yeah, so I can go to Jimmy Fallon's page, and I can actually just send a tweet to him. So tweet to Jimmy Fallon just appears right on the left-hand side. Or I could post a tweet on my page and then kind of tag him by putting the @ sign and then his Twitter handle. In this case, it's Jimmy Fallon. So if I write a tweet and I want him to see it, then I do @Jimmy Fallon in it, and then it appears in his Twitter feed as well. So, and remember, everything for Twitter, it's all about public displays of communication. So you're not talking about a private communication, like, for example, Facebook has the ability to post on the wall, which is public, or to privately send a message. Twitter is all about the public, very quick, brief interactions. So the question is, how do you answer a tweet? So the way that you can answer a tweet is one of two ways. One is you can actually reply. So underneath every tweet, there is a reply button. And if you hit reply, all the people that are already sort of copied in the message will appear there. You can delete any of them if you want, but then you add your message and then just hit tweet. And you can add a picture too. Another way, and it's not a direct way of letting them know, but sometimes, you know, people retweet things, you'll get a message saying that your tweet was retweeted. And then you can, you know, decide to go back and like it or something. And then the other third way is to favorite it. And if you mark it as a favorite, then they will also get a notification that you favorited their tweet. So those are kind of the ways that you can communicate with them. So, yep, Leona was asking, so if she used #WorstGifEver, that's where you would find all the conversation about that? Absolutely. So, and what's interesting about this from a social interaction perspective is the hashtag, keep in mind, is going to be used by multiple people at any given time. So there are different topics. So you might have #WorstGifEver. Someone else might have had that too. And so when you go and you look at that hashtag, you're going to see, so we'll do Throwback Thursday, you know, anybody who's using that hashtag, it'll all be mixed in. So another one, just in the interest of a contemporary topic here, there was a discussion I heard on NPR, and they were talking about this domestic violence issue and with the NFL, and so then they were posting the hashtag Why I Stayed, and so women started using this as a way to kind of talk about some of the reasons why women chose to stay in relationships when they had abusive partners. And so they were marketing the hashtag Why I Stayed for some of the interactions that were occurring on the topic of the domestic abuse. So, so there's a ton of great ways to leverage the power of social media here. Twitter is great for consuming information and keeping up with a lot of different groups, but it's also a great tool if you're wanting to commit to it, to being able to really market yourself, because people follow good comments, good resources, and so if you commit to using that and you put things out there, then a lot of people are going to want to know what you have to say, and you're going to get a lot of followers, and people, you know, want to pay attention to those that are putting out regular content, and so people use it as a teaser to some of their services. They'll give some information, and so anyway, that's just a little. I don't want to get too deep into that because we've got several others to cover, but you know, this is another great social media tool, and again, real low threshold from a technology perspective. Okay, let's get to Dropbox next. Dropbox is a social community type of file system, folder system, that allows you to share content, files, documents in a cloud storage, and to be able to share that with different people who you might want to be able to access that information. So what I really love about Dropbox is that, first of all, above anything, my content's in the cloud. Now, a couple people say, well, is that safe? And, you know, should I be concerned about putting my stuff in the cloud? And I would say that regardless of what technology comes out to make information more accessible to us, you always want to keep a backup of your stuff. And, but putting that aside, the nice thing is I can access my files instead of having to be at my laptop in my home or on my desktop at home to be able to access the files that I have saved on just that individual device. Dropbox allows me to put them in a cloud, and then I can get them at work, I can get them when I'm traveling for business, I can get them on my tablet, I can get them on my phone, I can get them on a friend's laptop. So it doesn't really matter where I am, I can always access those files. And the other thing is when you start to do more virtual work with distributed colleagues, such as your organization, this is a great, powerful tool to be able to share projects, documents on projects that you're working on. So the sign-in is just as easy as putting in your name, your email, and setting a password. But I'll just quickly show you what it looks like. Because you can install the Dropbox application to make it easier to move files around on your computer that you use most. But then there's also a web interface, Dropbox.com, that you could go to at any time to access it if you're not on your primary computer. So here I've got a bunch of stuff on Dropbox, and I can go down and go through mine pretty easily, and then like here's my presentations, and so I go through and I can find, and then you can see here some of the work I was doing to prepare for this presentation, you know, and you can see it tells you what kind of files, how big they are, when they're modified, so it's really easy, and it just looks like a regular folder on your computer. The other thing that I like about Dropbox is they have a pretty generous amount of space. And if you are willing to give them names of your friends, which is controversial but an effective marketing tool, then you'll get more free space. So, you know, if I know someone's interested in Dropbox, I'll say, let me send you an invite, because then I'll get free space and they'll get a little bit more free space. And that's how I was able to get up to like 18 gigs of space for nothing, just by finding people who I knew already had a mutual interest in and doing that. But either way, you get a couple of gigs without needing to pay anything. And then if you became a power user and you were really using this for your business, then you know, you can pay like $100 a year and have additional storage. Because, for example, I do have a larger account that I pay a small fee annually, because I have a backup of my phone. Everything goes to Dropbox. So all of my pictures get automatically uploaded. So if I ever lost my phone, I've got everything backed up on Dropbox at any given point. So that's nice for me. Any questions about Dropbox?
I'll just add something. I mean, you introduced me to Dropbox, and now I just had somebody else. I said, oh, have you used Dropbox? And because we're working on projects, that you can control giving access to people different folders. And so that's another thing that I have liked about that. Tina and I share a folder and have shared documents and projects. I just created a folder today and invited someone who I'm going to be working with at another college so that she could put the files in there, and we don't have to email them to each other. We can just put them in the Dropbox and keep them there and be able to both reference them.
That's a great point, Kathy. And also, if you have a shared folder with someone, every time I log into my laptop, it will tell me if someone has updated a file in my folder, so I don't have to guess. So, you know, if this was a shared folder with Kathy, it would say, you know, this file's been updated. And I'll say, oh, Kathy was in working on our document, and then I could go take a look at it. So, so it's got a lot of powerful features on it for sharing and collaboration that become really helpful. And Leona was saying that she's using it to make a conference program guide as well. So, so that's great for collaborative work. I don't know if you've done any collaboration with non-local people, but certainly it's even helpful for local people. But as a virtual organization, that might be something too that has some appeal to you folks. Okay, the next items, let me close out of this. I wanted to cover WordPress as well, to talk a little bit about this. If you have a website presence for your business or consulting or something, you know, maybe type a comment in the chat box. I'll be curious if any of you do have a virtual presence, whether it's personal or professional. Maybe you're a runner and you have a running blog, or you know, maybe you have a website for your business or something like that. WordPress is a blog, first and foremost, and I know the term blog can get kind of muddy these days with website, because it can be very difficult to tell when you're on a website versus a blog, because the tools have become so user-friendly and there's so many templates that have been developed that it sometimes is indistinguishable for the average consumer, whether or not you're actually visiting a blog site or you are on a website. So the reason why people sometimes want to create blogs, well, first, it gives you some type of virtual presence. And also, there's sometimes topics, for example, if you have a small business, then you might want to have a place for people to go and read a little bit about your consulting firm, or You know, I think someone earlier was talking about some crafting project, and let's say you are a knitter and you sell some of your designs or your things that you knit online. You might have an Etsy site, which is for the creative community, but you might have a blog to be able to draw some attention to your business and the products that you sell. Originally, the concept of the blog was to be able to do online journaling. However, it's expanded to a lot of different types of uses, but all still around presenting of ideas both visually and in writing. It's a double-edged sword having a virtual presence these days. You know, what you blog about, those perspectives and opinions can certainly carry weight if you're applying for a job and people are looking at this information, even though they're not supposed to necessarily, given the laws for hiring and employment practices. There's a lot of controversy over the use of social media, but it is something that when you get farther in processes that a lot of times it reference checks, they'll be checking to see if you've written about opinions in cyberspace and what those opinions are and whether or not that has a bearing on the organizational values. So those types of things you want to think about. But as a consultant, might just simply be about wanting to have a landing place for people to go and learn more about your company or your organization, or to share information. So maybe if you're giving a talk, you might want to write a little article that is related to that talk, either to get people jazzed about it and hopefully increase attendance at your talk, or it could be afterwards kind of blogging about some post-presentation ideas. So that's another way that it's used. But this one's really easy, and there's one thing I wanted to show you and why I wanted to talk a little bit about WordPress is because it's very easy to create a site. When you create an account, which again is just some of the real basic information, then you have this platform, and you can have multiple blogs. And they can all have very different purposes and names and everything. So I just started this sample business site one, and it's asking me to pick a theme. And so the thing that you notice about these little thumbnails of designs is that they're all very different. And some of them are free, and some of them have a cost. So this one I just clicked on, this one costs $69 to actually buy that. So if I wanted it, that's what it's going to cost me to get that design. The benefit of a lot of these is that all of the graphical design and back-end technology work has been done. The downside is that you also don't have flexibility to change it. You're kind of stuck with that design unless you decide to change the design. So here's a business one, and this one costs $150. So you'll see a bunch that are free, and you'll see a bunch that have a fee to be able to use. So this one's free. So if I wanted to activate this one, then I just automatically have that template, and then from that template, I can go and I can add in my particular information. So I can change the pictures, I can change the colors, and I can change the text. And I can make those edits and start my blog, and then I can sort of look at it. So the idea of being an author of a website has really been given to everybody who can get on the internet, where it used to be a more exclusive right, and now it's available to everyone. So if you're looking for a website presence, WordPress is a great place to start because it can cost nothing, it can be easy to update, and you can continue to leverage having those themes. And when I when I say that you can pick a name, you can, assuming that that URL is available, the format of the name is going to be whatever you want to call it, .wordpress.com. So right here, I have another blog that's called Knowledge Quest, but let me just see if I put Knowledge Quest 1, if that's available. So knowledgequest1.wordpress.com, and if I wanted it as a .com site, I can pay the charges for the domain, and you can see there's different costs to that. So sometimes people like that because they don't want it to look like a WordPress site. They just want it to look like their personal website. So that's also an option. But if I pick something here that was already taken name-wise, then it'll tell me the site already exists and to pick a new name. So that's pretty much easy. Here is a view of what you get for free. So you get a 3 gig website for a beginner free WordPress account, and then you can pay $100 if you wanted to use it. If you had a lot more content and you wanted to use direct email and things like that for a small business, then you could pay $100 a year and upgrade to the premium. So, so that's a great tool. Any questions about the WordPress site? Okay. I know we're a little bit kind of behind on time, as seems typical for me. But one of the things that I do want to just jump to real quickly is 2 things I just want to cover very quickly. I promise to be brief on this, but one thing is to talk just very briefly about the quantified self movement. This may be a term you've heard or maybe not, but quantified self, and you could probably Google that and find things on it, is a term that is used to describe the growing interest in devices that are portable and wearable that give us more information about ourselves. And they did a survey to look at what people's thoughts were. This is, I think, about 2 years ago, about wearing technology. And the assumption was that it was a trusted brand, so it didn't have to do a scam or anything like that, and it was something that you were interested in. And it's kind of amazing to look at this graphic. Most people, 30%, a third of them, had said that they'd be very interested in having something clipped to their clothing. So that's why you see a lot of those devices like Fitbits or you see 28% want to wear things on their wrist. There's just a lot of opportunities for tapping into the types of wearable devices that exist today. Runners clip things on their shoe to tell their distance. Particularly, I find it interesting that 3% of them are willing and interested in having things tattooed on their skin that give them feedback on things. So you can see you've got all sorts of ranges of things. But this quantified self movement is something that, you know, is a good topic in the future, but definitely represents how our society is changing when it comes to the idea of getting more information on ourselves. And I'd say the extent that that becomes relevant to this discussion as female entrepreneurs and working professionals is that there has to be an element of self-care for all of us. We all work a lot of hours. We are overextended doing a lot of things, and sometimes focusing on our health is at the bottom of the list. And so making sure that we're taking care of ourselves. The idea of the quantified self movement is about technologies that are changing that will give you more information about your health just at the blink of an eye. Like being able to Skype with your doctor instead of going in to make an appointment, or if you happen to be on medication for something, that you might be able to get information from your phone that can sense it from your body and send the results directly to your doctor, those types of things. And then the other last thing that I just wanted to mention real quickly.
Can I interrupt for a second? Your graphics aren't showing.
Oh, that graphic isn't showing?
No.
Well, Kathy, maybe you can send it out to the group.
I did email it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It was just one slide, a one-slide graphic. But the other thing, and I can just paste the actual link right here, and then I'll just end by talking about virtual assistants. Again, another topic that probably deserves more time, but the concept of virtual assistants are becoming more popular these days because people have, with the internet, been able to tap into both offering and receiving services that were previously available only to very wealthy people who could afford a personal assistant, for example. And now we have the ability to tap into and find a virtual assistant for a particular project or a particular task. And so there's a couple of organizations out there that really have to do with being able to tap into either if you wanted to be a virtual assistant to someone or put those services out there, or if you wanted to tap into one. And so I'll just mention a couple of sites. I don't endorse any of them. I'm not getting money from any of the companies that I've talked about today. I'm just trying to educate you on possibilities that are out there. But Elance is one, elance.com, elance.com. Another is peopleperhour.com, and another is odesk.com. So those are some sites, examples of virtual assistants, and again, perhaps another topic that might have wider appeal at a future point. There's a question here if I could talk about Meetup, and I'd be happy to talk about Meetup for a couple minutes. Meetup, let me close this. Meetup is a site that, ironically, just to understand a little of the context, was created by someone in New York City to be able to find a virtual way to use the internet to drive face-to-face social interaction. So the idea was that a lot of sites were coming up that had to do with dating or social connection, but they were all virtual. And that he felt that he wanted to look for more connectedness with people that were in his local city and area. And so he created this site to be able to say, hey, let's meet up and connect over coffee at this event, or, you know, let's put a poetry workshop together and see who wants to come and talk about that. So that's how it got started. It is turned into this awesome phenomenon. If you go to meetup.com, you can, again, easily create a basic account. And so I just created a dummy account here. And then when you go in, I joined one group just to give you an example of what it looks like. So this particular group that I joined is Female Leadership in the Twin Cities. So it tells me that there's 37 female leaders that are part of this. And if I go to the site, then I can see what their past meetups have been. Looks like they've, the Well-Spoken Woman, Your Guide to Looking and Sounding Your Best, a March reading, probably book club. And so you have a chance to kind of see what's going on. You can connect with the people as part of it. It tells you what other meetups that people in that meetup are also a part of. So you might see some overlap. And for example, someone else is part of a women's business exchange, so that might be something that I'm also interested in. Then I could click on that. I could read their information, and then I could decide to join them if I wanted to. After you're part of enough groups, when you first log into Meetup, you'll first see all of the things going on in the Meetup, the meetups that you're a part of. You can also choose to find meetups just based on your distance. You want to see within X miles of your hometown or a particular city or state. And so if I wanted to look up here and let's say I wanted to just find out if there's any motorcycle meetups. Now within this radius there was nothing, so I could either choose to expand it or change it. And then it kind of shows you down here, okay, there's a Twin Cities Motorcycle Club. So I'm like, what's that about? And then I could go and I could read it and I could choose to join it. The other nice thing is you could just decide that you want to pick a particular date when you got nothing going on and you want to see, hey, what else is going on? What else I'd be interested in? And they have the Dead Feminist Society of Minnesota, Salon for Uppity Women, is having a Spanish book drive. So maybe I want to go and check that out. And then all you have to do is go there and you can see, in this case, they want you to join to be able to RSVP. The one thing I will comment about this is sometimes you do see information, like in this case it says one going, and you might say, oh, well, that's gonna be a snooze fest because nobody's going to show up. But a lot of people actually post across multiple meetup groups and or just use to supplement an existing event. So a lot of times the number of people that you see that attend on the meetup site does not necessarily reflect the total attendance. Maybe it does in some cases, but in most cases people are cross promoting. So that's an example there. How I find this can be helpful from a professional context. One is to find other like-minded people. When I first moved here last June to Minnesota, I didn't know anybody. And so I first looked up feminist groups, and that's actually where I found this Dead Feminist Society for Uppity Women. It was pretty funny. So that's one. I found Humanist group that does a lot of TED Talk type of events. I found people who are interested in some of the sports that I'm interested in. So the Minnesota Lynx are really popular here, women's basketball. So, you know, I was able to look and say, what am I interested in? Who else is there? And then there was also a Tri-City Transplants group, which are all the people that have moved here from other states. So we would talk about all the cultural differences between living in Minnesota versus all the other places that we have also lived. So it was a really great way to find community quickly, and I was able to do that both personally and professionally, getting connected to other organizations that share the same professional interests that I have. You know, sometimes then too, I've facilitated a couple of sessions. I haven't actually hosted my own meetup site, but I've been a host of meetups on other sites. So those are some things that you can do with Meetup. Any questions about that?
I'll only make a kind of highlight. I belong to an organization, as you said, that always meets. So they've used it as a recruiting tool, and they put their site, because we weren't getting new members, so they put it out there as a meetup group, and we've gotten 28 members have found us and have started coming. Now, we don't invite them to all of our social events, but we invite them to our standard meeting, and that way then they can join before we will allow them to go to our members' events that are really member-only events, you know.
Okay.
So it's been very effective as a recruiting tool.
Yep. Yeah, that's very true. And also, people have used it to try to diversify their events. So, for example, there was a discussion at one of the feminist meetings about how there's a gap in how the young women of today view feminism, and what they think about feminist groups. And so then we said, well, wouldn't that be great to try to attract a younger audience through a couple of different types of meetup events. So yeah, so there's a lot of great uses for it. And even if you just attend an event, usually they're really interesting opportunities to get to know the people. There's socials, happy hours, you know, a lot of great events to talk and meet new and different people. Okay, well, I know we're kind of a little over time, but I just wanted to kind of cover a couple things that I felt might be of use to you. Does anyone have any questions in general about any of the technologies that I covered? Okay, well, then
this is wonderful. Thank you very much, Barb says, because people are still kind of on mute, so they can kind of come off mute. But I know we ran over, but it was really good information, and so we really, really, really appreciate you sharing this knowledge and some of the new tools that we've heard about but really didn't know enough about. So I really want to thank you again to come and share that with us. I will remind our members, if you want to, if Tina's going to give me control back, if you want to remember that we have LinkedIn and Facebook already. So if you haven't liked us on Facebook or haven't joined the LinkedIn group, please do. And as we always like to end our meetings, never doubt the small group of people can change the world. It's the only thing that has, from Margaret Mead. And so until we connect again, we're not meeting in October because we're doing some planning, because we're having an annual meeting which is scheduled for the latter part of November, and information will be coming out from that. And so I'd like to stop our recording, and then we can still talk if people want to